Hi, I'm John Stevenson, and we're going to be looking at 2 Samuel chapter 20. This is going to be the Sheba Revolt in our continuing study of the historical books of the Old Testament. Chapter 20, verse 1. Now a worthless fellow happened to be there whose name was Sheba. Or if you want to call it Sheba, that's okay, but the B actually has a V sound there in Hebrew. Now that sounds a bit like the Queen of Sheba. That's actually spelled differently. So not just it sounds a little bit the same, but it's spelled differently. Not the same person, no relationship to. And this one is the son of Bichri, and we're told he's a Benjamite. Remember, Saul was from Benjamin, and Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin, has given David some trouble because Saul came from there, as well as Saul's son Ishbosheth. And that's been an issue. And so he blew the trumpet and said, and notice this is given almost like in poetry, we have no portion in David, nor do we have an inheritance in the son of Jesse. Every man to his tents, O Israel, and every man to his tents, like, let's get out from under him and let's do our own thing. So this is a rebellion. Verse 2, so all the men of Israel withdrew from following David and followed Sheba, the son of Bichri. But the men of Judah remained steadfast to their king from the Jordan even to Jerusalem. So I'm not entirely sure of where the boundary lines would have been here. Notice Israel, that's going to be its own thing, just like it will be in the days of Solomon. Although I suspect that some of the areas on the east side of the Jordan River might have stayed loyal to David. But we're not told there, so I want to be careful. So Judah is going to stay with David. Israel, the other tribes, not so much. And remember, there had been some bad feelings at the close of the last chapter between the men of Judah and the men of Israel, and that might have led up to this rebellion here. Well, the king said to Amasa, and Amasa, you'll remember, had been the general under Absalom, and David decided, for whatever reason, to keep him on the staff, to make him general. And so Joab had been, well, not retired, but he was no longer in first place, and that's gonna change in a minute. So the king said to Amasa, "Call out the men of Judah for me within 3 days." It's interesting that we have the 3 days again, and be present here yourself. So Amasa went to call out the men of Judah, but he delayed longer than the set time which he had appointed. Instead of doing it 3 days, like when I get around to it, I'll do it. And he doesn't take this as something very important. So there's no rush in his mind. Remember, not having a rush is what led to Absalom's failure. And so now the same thing is happening. They have this Sheba threat, but they also have an Amasa, not threat, but he's not doing anything. He's not doing the thing he's supposed to be doing. So David sent to Abishai. Now, Abishai is one of his nephews. Now, Sheba, the son of Bichri, will do to us more harm than Absalom. Take your Lord's servants and pursue him so that he does not find for himself fortified cities and escape from our sight. He may try to get away, but then he might come back and have all Israel behind him. So Joab's men, notice it didn't go to Joab, but Joab's men pick this up because they're all related, they're all cousins. So Joab's men went out after him along with the Kerites, the Kerethites and the Pelethites and all the mighty men, and they went out from Jerusalem to pursue Sheba, the son of Bichri. And so notice, it hadn't been Joab that was given the commission, but he's still in the ranks. He hasn't been retired. And so, leaders lead. And Joab, whether you like him or hate him, I have to say, Joab was a leader. And so he ends up leading, and they're going after Sheba. When they were at the large stone, which is in Gibeon. Now remember, Gibeon has a history. Gibeon, some conflicts between Israel and Judah had taken place in Gibeon, and remember the whole issue with Abner that had a Gibeon focus as well. And so they come to the large stone, which is at Gibeon. Amasa came to meet them. He finally shows up. Leaders lead. Amasa, he wasn't leading anybody. He looks for a guy that's out for a walk instead. And so he's coming to where the people that he's supposed to be leading are assembled, and he came to meet them. Now Joab was dressed in his military attire, and over it was a belt with a sword in its sheath fastened at his waist. And he went forward, it fell out, that is, not out onto the ground, but out where it was, well, it was available for a quick draw. Can I say it that way? Because that's going to play a role. It's like when you see an action movie and maybe there's suspense leading up to it, and they're in a room and the camera for a second focuses on a knife on the kitchen counter, and you know something's going to happen with the knife. Same thing here. You know something's going to happen with this sword that's like, sticking out. It fell out. And so here they are at Gibeon. And Joab said to Amasa, "Is it well with you, my brother? Is it shalom?" And Joab took Amasa by the beard with his right hand to kiss him. At least that's what Amasa thinks. This is going to be a kissing embrace, and instead it's going to be a very different kind of embrace. And so he turns this to Amasa, "Is it well with you?" But Amasa was not on guard against the sword, which is in Joab's hand, because it had fallen out from his waist to his hand. So he struck him in the belly with it and poured out his inward parts on the ground. That's sort of graphic, and it's supposed to be. And did not strike him again. I mean, one strike was enough, because Joab is a professional. He knows what to do. Remember the story of Simon Peter and the sword in the Garden of Gethsemane? And let me just say, Peter was not a professional. He was a professional fisherman, not so much with swords. And he goes after, well, somebody. I think what he did is he chose the smallest guy in the group, happened to be the servant of the high priest, and tries to take off his head, but misses, and takes off an ear. That's plenty painful as it is. Well, Joab, no such problems. He takes him out, one strike, and he's done. Did not strike him again, and he died. Then Joab and Abishai, his brother, pursued Sheba, the son of Bichri, which was the initial plan, and so they continue on their way. Now he went through all the tribes of Israel to Abel, even Beth Maacah, and that's way up in the north. Just look it on the map, near Dan. It's on the east, on the west side of the Jordan River. Dan's on the east side of the Jordan River. That's the headwaters of the Jordan. It's so small up at that point that you can probably wade across it, especially if it's not rainy season. I haven't been there in the rainy season, so I can't really say for sure. And notice, and all the Berites, and they were gathered together and also went after him, and everybody's in pursuit of this rebel. So we have Sheba, who had blown the trumpet, every man to his tent. That was the call for rebellion. I skipped over it, but David, there's a section there where we read that David took his concubines and made sure that they were housed and protected. After all, remember what happened to them last time when we had the Absalom revolt. That's not going to be an issue now. We have Amasa, who delayed, and it took his time. And then the pivotal point in the story where Amasa was killed by Joab. Guess what? Joab's getting his job back. He's now going to be, by default, general of the army again, because he just took out the slow-footed general. And so Amasa's body is removed. And then we again read about a woman. We had the concubines. And what happens is they go to this city way up in the north. Is it in Israel or just outside the borders? It's so close you can't tell. And they lay siege to the city, and they're breaking down the walls, and they're going to conquer the city and capture Sheba, who's there inside the city, and take everybody out. And a wise woman, we don't even know her name. There's a lot of women in the story of David that we've seen. Have you noticed that? Well, this wise woman intercedes and says, look, I know you're after Sheba and you're going to take out the city because of Sheba, but what if the city took out Sheba and that wasn't an issue? And Joab is like, well, that works for me. And it worked. And she goes out and she speaks to the men in the city. And apparently she's wise enough to have some influence. And so Sheba's killed and he's no longer an issue and the city is saved. And so Joab blows the trumpet, and we read, Sheba had blown the trumpet, and every man to his tents, and Joab does the same thing. So it's almost like bookends, blowing the trumpet, every man to his tents. That's at the beginning, and that's also at the end, and story is done. And we come to the end of the chapter with a summary statement of who's in charge of what. Of course, David is still king. Joab was over the whole army of Israel, and Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, was over the Kerethites, and the Pelethites, and Adoram was over the forced labor, and Jehoshaphat, the son of Ahilud, was the recorder, probably the guy who's writing this, at least the earliest version of it. And Sheba, there's a different Sheba, was scribe, and Zadok and Abiathar were priests, and Ira the Jerite was also a priest to David. And so the chapter ends. Thus ends this section that has talked about David's family troubles, but we're not done with the book. And so next time we'll be in chapters 21 through 24, where we have other stories of David, not necessarily in chronological order, but in topical order. But we'll see that next time.